Seven is one of David Fincher's most famous movies, both in terms of popularity and critical acclaim. And it's particularly famous for its distinction of being one of the best movies where the bad guy actually wins. But I don't know how much I actually agree with that last part, and today I'd like to go over why. But first, and quite obviously, there will be major spoilers ahead for this movie. So if you don't want anything ruined, you should probably turn off the video now. Okay, so if you're still here, please give me a chance to explain. Because I'm not going to deny that John Doe succeeded at getting Detective Mills to kill him and thoroughly ruined his life. He most definitely won in that regard. But the thing is, there are major elements to his plan that he openly states that most people don't seem to take into account, and they hint at the fact that his final victory is nowhere near as great as he thinks it is or will be. If you pay attention during the car scene right before the infamous ending, John Doe offers some insight into his philosophies. And one particular thing he says that most people never talk about is that he believes when he dies that he'll be welcomed into heaven with open arms and be hailed as a hero by God for everything he did on his behalf. And I believe that's very telling, as he's essentially revealing that once he realized the police were going to capture him, he decided to let himself die so he can move on to paradise, but not before destroying the men who tried to sabotage his sacred work. In other words, he wants to die at that point because he believes he'll be getting the full hero treatment by God in heaven. Right before he dies, he even closes his eyes and looks totally at peace, which only further reinforces what he believes is waiting for him. Now, you can have religious debates all day long if you wish, but just for argument's sake, let's say for a moment his religion is the correct one. That the God from Christianity depicted in the Bible and the one John Doe is committing all the crimes for is exactly the one that exists in the movie's universe. Now, as any true Christian will tell you, he couldn't be more wrong about where he's going. He believes that because he did horrible things on God's behalf, that makes him a hero. But in Christianity, that's not how it works at all, and instead, he'd be sent to rot in hell for all eternity for all the awful things he did, no matter whose behalf it was on. So while he's expecting to go to paradise, once Mills shoots him, he'd be sent to a place of eternal torture, going by his own religion's logic. So while his plan did succeed, it was all for nothing, and he's going to suffer hard for it instead of getting the wonderful congratulations and reward he's expecting from it. But now, and once again, just for argument's sake, let's say that his religion is the wrong one in this movie's universe, that one of several other religions is actually the correct one, which would then mean that he committed all these terrible, inhuman crimes on behalf of a god that doesn't exist, meaning that not only was it all for nothing, but he's all the more likely to be punished for them in the afterlife as a result. And now let's say there is no God, that one just ceases to exist after death. Then that's exactly what happened to him, and that still means that all his precious work was for nothing. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that no matter how you spin it, no matter which way you look at it, John Doe technically doesn't win, and not because of the general fact that he dies, but because he's not going to get what he expects to after death. As I just went over, while he's expecting eternal peace in paradise, he's either going to get an eternity of suffering or just cease to exist. Now, if David Fincher ever said or established that isn't the case, that John Doe really did go to paradise after death, then everything I've just said would be completely irrelevant. But the thing is, thus far he's never said anything in regards to what happened to him once he dies, leading us to assume the conclusion based off our various real world beliefs. And so, no matter which, if any, you believe, he's lost the moment he hits the ground. He may have won against the characters, but not in terms of God. And that's what's more important to him. It's not like the Joker in The Dark Knight, who would have won if he had gotten Batman to kill him, because that's all he cares about. He doesn't care where he's going after death, just as long as he breaks Batman's moral code. It's not like that with John Doe, though. Where he's going after death is very important to him, and a crucial part of his plan. And another thing to consider is he also gloats about how his crimes will change the world, amaze people, and be speculated, talked about, and pondered for all eternity. And the thing is, he's really giving himself way too much credit in this regard. Sure, what he did was horrible, and he irreparably destroyed the lives of way too many people, but in the end, it's not really going to get the fanfare he expects it to. I mean, once again, we have to go by what happens in the real world. What do you think would really happen if something similar went down in the real world? He'd probably be reviled by anybody who hears his story on the news as an evil, monstrous, and absolutely insane man that nobody would ever mourn. And at best, his crimes would probably just be put in some crime and psychology textbooks to help students study the mind of insane killers, and not really much else other than getting stuffed in a police file. In other words, what I'm trying to get at here is realistically, his crimes won't get anywhere near the recognition or consideration he believes they're going to get, which all goes back to reinforcing the point that when you look at it, everything he did really didn't achieve anything except satisfy his twisted desires to brutally murder people. And you can't say that was his only real motivation either, as his library record and conversation in the car clearly show that he genuinely believes in what he's doing. And in the end, as I've already said quite a few times, once the movie's over, things do not go the way he expects them to, both in terms of himself and his crimes. And that is something I am absolutely sure of, unless David Fincher himself says otherwise. Now, you're free to disagree with all of this if you want, especially because I know religion can be a very tricky and touchy subject, but I still personally believe that he doesn't win nearly as much as most people say he does. Now, as I conceded at the start, when it comes to Mills, he most certainly won on every front. That I will freely admit. But in terms of everything else, I still say that when you take a step back and really look at it, he basically lost. Because no matter what, he's not getting the afterlife he expects to, and his crimes aren't going to make any difference in the world at large. So while he does get revenge on the men who nearly stopped his killing spree, I would still say that it was really a hollow victory for him all around at best. Okay, that's all I wanted to say on that. So what do you think? Do you still firmly believe that John Doe won at the end of 7? Or do you think the hints I just pointed out do indicate that he may have actually lost? Please feel free to tell me in the comments below. But remember, let's try to keep it a civil discussion. We're simply here to talk about a movie, not have some big philosophical argument. Because as I've said many times before, you're free to disagree with me, and I've got absolutely nothing against you if you do. But either way, thank you for watching. It is all greatly appreciated, and I hope to see you all next time.